Have you ever set this huge, ambitious goal for yourself only to feel totally overwhelmed and then just give up? Yeah, we've all been there. Today, we're diving into Atomic Habits by James Clear, and this book has a completely different way of looking at things. The secret? Real, lasting change doesn't come from some massive, heroic effort. Nope. It comes from the compound effect of hundreds of tiny decisions you make every single day.
Okay, so let's start with a question. What would actually happen if you got just 1% better at something every single day for a whole year? I mean, it doesn't sound like much, right? It's a tiny, almost invisible improvement. But the math behind this little idea? Oh, it's absolutely staggering. And here it is. This is the incredible power of compounding. That tiny 1% improvement every day makes you almost 38 times better in a year. But, and this is the scary part, the reverse is also true. If you let yourself slip by just 1% each day, you basically wipe yourself out back to almost zero. This is why habits are, as Clear says, the compound interest of self-improvement. They build on themselves, for better or for worse. James Clear uses this perfect analogy. Think about an airplane taking off from LA. If the pilot adjusts the heading but just 3.5 degrees, a tiny, tiny shift, that's the difference between landing in New York City or landing in Washington, D.C. Your daily habits are exactly like that rudder. A small choice you make today might feel totally insignificant, but over months and years, it can steer you to a completely different destination in life. So, how do we start making these tiny positive course corrections? Well, the book's first big idea is a pretty radical shift in how we think. It tells us to basically forget about setting goals. Let's be really clear about the difference here. A goal is the result you want. Run a marathon, write a book, get that promotion. The system, on the other hand, is the process that leads to those results. It's your training schedule, your daily writing routine, the sales calls you make. The goal is the finish line. The system is how you actually run the race. And here is the absolute key insight. Clear argues that we have it all backward. We think setting bigger goals is the answer, but he says you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. A good system is what keeps you going, especially on those days where you have zero motivation. And think about it, right? Every single team in a sports league has the same goal, to win the championship. So the goal itself can't be what makes the difference. What is different is their daily system of practice and improvement. Plus, when you're only focused on the goal, you're basically putting your happiness on hold until you get there. But if you fall in love with the process, the system, you get to feel good every single day you show up. Okay, so if building better systems is the answer, how in the world do we actually do it? This is where the real genius of the book kicks in. Clear breaks it all down into a super simple, memorable framework he calls the 4 laws of behavior change. So it turns out that every single one of our habits, good or bad, from checking your phone to going to the gym, follows this same 4-step loop. First, there's a cue, something that triggers your brain. That leads to a craving, a desire to change your state. That craving then motivates a response, which is the actual habit itself. And finally, that response delivers a reward, which satisfies the craving and tells your brain, hey, remember this, let's do it again. You can even think of it as a little 2-part story. The first 2 steps, the cue and the craving, that's the problem phase, is when your brain realizes, hey, something's up. The next 2, the response and reward, are the solution phase. That's when you actually do something about it. Now, this slide right here, this is the entire operating manual for your habits. To build a good habit, you just follow the laws. Make the cue obvious. Make the craving attractive. Make the response easy. And make the reward satisfying. And here's the beautiful part. To break a bad habit, you don't need a whole new strategy. You just flip the laws. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. It's simple, it's elegant, and it's incredibly powerful. All right, let's zoom in on one of the most powerful laws for actually getting started. Because let's be honest, starting is often the hardest part. Making good habits easy. This is where the practical genius of the book really, really shines. See, at our core, we human beings are just wired for convenience. There's something called the law of least effort, and it basically says our brains are always looking for the path of least resistance. We will almost always choose the option that requires the least amount of work. And that's not being lazy, it's just being efficient. Our brains are designed to save energy. And this is the key distinction to make here. This law isn't about avoiding hard work. Not at all. It's about reducing the friction, The number of steps, the mental gymnastics, between you and the good habits you actually want to build. You're just making it as easy as possible to do the things that deliver those big long-term rewards. So how do you actually make a habit easy in practice? We've all done this. We get super motivated to get in shape. We try to run 5 miles on the first day, we're exhausted, and then we quit. Clear has a brilliant strategy to counter this, the 2-minute rule. The idea is so simple. Any new habit you start should be scaled down so it takes less than 2 minutes to do. Why? Because a habit has to be established before it can ever be improved. Just look at these examples. Run a 5K is way too big. It becomes put on my running shoes. That's it. Study for class becomes open my notes. Read before bed becomes read 1 page. These are what he calls gateway habits. They're so easy you literally can't say no to them, and they create a path that naturally leads to the bigger behavior you're after. The whole point is just to master the art of showing up. Here's another genius technique, habit stacking. You just find a habit you already do every day without thinking, and you stack your new habit right on top of it. The formula couldn't be simpler. After I do my current habit, I will do my new habit. So something like, after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. You're hijacking the momentum you already have instead of trying to create it from nothing. And finally, maybe the most powerful tip of all. Stop trying to fight your environment and start designing it to work for you. Make your good habits the most obvious, most convenient choices you have. Want to eat more apples? Don't hide them in a drawer in the fridge. Put them in a big bowl right on the counter. Redesigning your space is one of the fastest ways to change your behavior because it puts your good habits on autopilot. Okay, so we've made our new habits obvious, attractive, and super easy to do. But how do we stick with them for the long haul, especially when that initial burst of excitement starts to fade? Let's get into the secret to getting results that actually last. So it all comes down to this really simple truth about how our brains work. What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. If a behavior feels good, you'll want to do it again. The problem is, the rewards for our good habits, like getting fit or saving money, are often way off in the future. We need to find a way to feel successful right now. 2 strategies here are absolutely key. First, use a habit tracker. Just the simple act of putting an X on a calendar gives you a little hit of immediate satisfaction. It creates this visual chain that you become proud of and don't want to break. Second, and this is so important, follow one simple rule. Never miss twice. Look, missing 1 day is an accident. It happens. But missing 2 days? That's the start of a new bad habit. The goal isn't to be perfect. It's to get back on track as fast as you possibly can. And this is a hard truth that most people don't like to talk about. Motivation is a wave. It comes and it goes. The real secret to success isn't having some endless supply of passion. It's about who can handle the boredom of showing up every day, of doing the work, even when it's not exciting. You have to fall in love with the process, not just the eventual prize. And ultimately, it really just boils down to this. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. Professionals know what they need to do, and they do it, whether they feel like it or not. They trust the system they've built to deliver the results. The real power of Atomic Habits isn't about making some huge, life-altering change overnight. It's about understanding that small, seemingly insignificant improvements, when done consistently, compound into absolutely remarkable results. So the only real question left is this: what tiny 1% improvement will you choose to make today?